G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. If you do love today's bloody good content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn at the barbie, hit that subscribe button, and maybe the bell notifications, and enjoy today's bloody good episode. Let's go. Posted by user AlternativeCorgi301, titled, Am I the asshole for ruining a baby name? I am Brazilian, but I've been living in the US for 3 years. My first language is Brazilian Portuguese. I have a 4-year-old son, and I'm pregnant with a girl due in May. My son is friends with a girl whose mother, I'll call her Becca, is also pregnant. She's due a couple of weeks before me and is also expecting a third girl. Since we take our kids on playdates almost weekly, we frequently talk about our pregnancies. Becca is into unique names, not uniques or tragedies, but names that she and her husband create. It's not my style, but she managed to come up with genuinely nice names for both of her older daughters, so there was never really a reason for me to say anything. This time, Becca and her husband had a lot of trouble coming up with a new name. She first brought this up last December. For months, they'd tried to create something that sounded good, but with no success. We took our kids on a playdate at a park this weekend. When we sat down for a snack, Becca excitedly told me that they'd finally settled on a name. I was really happy for her and asked her what she had chosen. Narina. To those who don't know, that's Portuguese for nostril. I managed to control myself and told her that it sounded lovely, but my son let out a giggle. My husband and I are raising him bilingual, so he speaks Portuguese, and Becca wanted to know why. I tried to brush it off, but she kept insisting. Eventually, I told her that while Narina could be a lovely name, it was also the Portuguese word for nostril. Becca seemed really sad to hear that. She said she'd think of something else, but had fallen in love with Narina. After we went home, Becca's husband called me. He was furious at me for ruining the only name they had agreed on. Apparently, he had a fight with Becca because she told him that she wanted to think of something else. He argued they'd never visit Brazil anyway, so they shouldn't have to change the name. But Becca refused to use Narina. My husband agrees that their fight is not my fault, but thinks that I didn't need to tell Becca anything, since Americans are unlikely to know what Narina means. Am I the asshole? Edit. This was not my son's fault. He is 4 years old and had an honest reaction to hearing a baby would essentially be named Nostril. I get that some people might think that I was the asshole, but don't blame my child for this. Edit 2. Okay, a lot of people are misreading Narina as Narnia. No real comment on that, but the Chronicles of Nostril does have a nice ring to it. In the comments, Test Monkey Alpha says, not the asshole. I'm shocked they didn't bother Googling their name ideas as they came up with them. I see Narina as nostril on the first page of search results. OP replies, I don't think they ever do. Apparently their eldest daughter's name also means something in a different language, though a much cuter word, and they had no idea until someone who spoke it told them. As a fellow Brazilian, I'm impressed you were able to control yourself. I would have probably let a little giggle escape. I mean, can you imagine a little Narina running around? Impossible not to laugh at least a little. Totally not the asshole. It's not your problem that they chose that name. Perhaps if they added a Y like Nayrina, it would be better for your friend? Not the asshole. You want to know what I think? I think that her jerk of a husband would have called you livid that you didn't warn them when they inevitably meet someone who knows Portuguese and knows what that kid's name means. He's rude. I have 7 nibblings. I'm from a white American family. 3 nibblings speak Portuguese. Dad's Brazilian. Another 2 speak Spanish. Dad's Colombian. The other 2, Dad's white American, are learning Portuguese because my sister wants to move there. Hubby's mum is a French teacher, and her kids range from basic understanding to fully fluent. Kids are going to interact with a lot of people who speak other languages, even in the USA. Not the asshole. You weren't really given any other choice other than to explain your son's reaction. Even if you had managed to brush it off, there is a high chance that your son might have spilled the beans at a later time, like after her child is born. Young kids rarely know how and when to filter things, and that goes double if they are a chatty child. Knowing the name has an unflattering translation in another language obviously bothers your friend. If she had found out anyway after naming her child, she might have been upset with you for not saying. This is one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations for you. But definitely not the asshole for their arguments. All you did was give her the truth. It's up to them how they use that information. It's not your fault that they are disagreeing. That's on them. Friend's husband is the asshole for confronting you. Could she maybe call her daughter Marina? That name has been around for a long time, but is still unusual. No idea if it has any meaning though. And OP says, it's actually a very common name in Brazil. That would be the problem though. Their whole naming strategy is creating new names. What about Larina? Still unique and cute. And OP says, while it definitely could be cute, and I'm not saying it will ever come up in her daughter's life, I think it's pretty close to Latrina, which I probably don't have to translate. Yeah, I'm just gonna hop on board with this one. I don't think you're the asshole for ruining a baby name. I think that given the circumstances and that potential interaction you would have in the future with the baby already being named that, you've done the right thing here, even though your hand was forced. It does appear as though that husband was just looking for someone to be angry at, because how can he, in good faith, name the child that after knowing that they are going to be bullied? He's a piece of shit for putting that on you. Is he projecting his insecurities and his own failings onto you? This guy seems like he's more than happy to set his children up to be bullied in school. That's not cool. And now, onto the update. Hey Reddit, thank you for all of your feedback and advice on my original post. First of all, I want to clarify that I never told Becca not to name her daughter Narina. I just told her what it meant in Portuguese. And only because my son laughed. Again, this wasn't his fault. It was my translation that made her change the name, but it was still her decision. I got a DM about how I shouldn't have involved my native language into Becca's choice for her daughter's name, which was also not the case. I found no joy in telling Becca what it meant. There are plenty of normal names in the English language that I can ruin with Portuguese. I've actually been listing some since my first post, but I wouldn't translate them without being asked to. Many of you came forward saying that Narina was also a flower, the Finnish word for a creaking sound, and an actual Persian name. I didn't know any of that, but it was interesting to find out. I listed most of the meanings you guys gave me with the intention of showing them to Becca. I also got a lot of comments suggesting similar names: Marina, Nara, Nerina, Narine, etc., and I wrote down some of them as well. Becca and I met for another playdate with the kids, and I showed her my lists. I also emphasized that she could still use the name Narina if she wanted to. At first, she politely turned everything down, including that last part. While Becca said that she did like some of the names that I told her about, her method consists solely of creating new names with her husband. Apparently they got to Narina by mixing and matching syllables until they had something that sounded nice, and finding out the name that they'd created for their daughter also meant nostril was enough for her to lose interest in it. Becca did love the name Nerina though. She didn't admit it until we were about to go our separate ways, but she said she would mention it to her husband. And, speak of the devil, her husband, as far as I know, is still pissed at me. He didn't try to contact me again, but Becca said he rolled his eyes when she mentioned the upcoming playdate. Apparently, he's the one who came up with the order of the syllables that resulted in Narina, and was upset that I had ruined it. I told Becca that I didn't want to hear from her husband again. She agreed his phone call was extremely inappropriate and promised to tell him not to contact me any further. Look, I'm not gonna lie, I'm really effing glad they did not name their kid Nostril. I'm also really proud of myself for holding in my laughter when I first heard that, but I know that Becca is a great mother who is perfectly capable of naming her children, so I know her daughter's name will be beautiful. I think that's all. Becca's baby might be named Nerina. That will depend on Nostril Sr. though. Also, for justice's sake, my daughter will be named Luciana. Feel free to translate it. But seriously, Thank you guys. In the comments, Amicius says, how wide are these people that they thought they invented a word that already exists in at least 4 other languages? I feel like my suggestion is to avoid these people. Most likely they haven't traveled and aren't familiar with any language but English. I'm around other languages, especially Spanish, quite a lot. I had no clue that the word Narina meant anything at all, and just thought that it was an odd pick for a name. It's not like people frequently say nostril in regular conversation. After all of this, I learned it's a word in multiple languages, all with very different meanings, and that fascinates me. Since they thought they had totally manufactured the name, they had no reason to look it up. Lol? I think they've learned a good lesson. Nostril Senior! I actually lolled. Nice updates. Edit to add, maybe they should just Google the name they come up with before deciding. OP says, my husband and I have been calling him that almost exclusively. Yeah, some names are normal in certain languages or cultures, but very inappropriate or funny in others. Like in Vietnamese, we have the name Dung, meaning purity and harmony. But, well, you know how that sounds in English. In Thai, there's a lot of girl names that end with porn, which means blessing, like Idaporn, Amporn, Ratamporn, Siraporn, etc. And it is self-explained for English speakers. The only asshole here is the husband. Becca's husband deserves to be called Nostril Senior for that attitude, lol. Side note, why do people give children such weird and bad names? Giving a child's name is important, and you shouldn't give them silly or dumb names, because if you do, those names will surely get the child bullied and made fun of. It's like trying to name your child Tinkerbell. Our next post is by user ExcitingIce9119, titled, Am I the asshole for cutting my mother-in-law off because she told my daughter she hoped I had died when I was taken to hospital? I, 30 female, was in a car crash. I had to be cut out of the car. I wasn't seriously injured though, thankfully, but the other person unfortunately wasn't doing well from what I saw before I was taken away to the hospital. I was told to stay in hospital overnight to see if I suffered from a concussion. I rang my husband and told him what happened. My mother-in-law got the incidents mixed up when he dropped off our daughters, 6, 11, to my mother-in-law while he rushed to see me. The next morning, my husband rang our daughters to come get me while I was waiting to be discharged. Upon seeing me, my 6-year-old busted into tears and said, I don't want you to die. I comforted her and said I'm not dying, and I was very lucky. She then said Granny said she hoped I die so that them and my husband can come live with her. Me and my husband were shocked, and my 12-year-old confirmed that she heard her say that. My husband said he was going to ring mother-in-law. When he came back in the room, he looked furious, but didn't say anything until after we got home, and he said mother-in-law denied it, but after he kept pushing, she ended up admitting it. But she said she didn't mean it. I thought me and her were close, but I guess not. I am incredibly hurt that she would want that, and said I wanted me and the girls go no contact with mother-in-law. I told him that he can have a relationship with her, but I don't want me and the girls to have one with her. My husband said he supports me. He then rang mother-in-law and told her what I said. She didn't take it too well. She came to our house crying and said that it was a misunderstanding and she didn't mean it and that we were taking it the wrong way. My husband asked, what did you mean then? And she just got hysterical and started crying and saying she always wanted daughters, but my husband was the only child due to her not being able to have any more after him, and that the girls are more like her daughters than granddaughters, and she wasn't thinking properly when she said that to our 6-year-old. She got so worked up that my husband had to take her home. When he got back, he said he didn't know she felt like that and asked did I want to still cut her off. I said yes. And he said okay and didn't argue. But it's been a week now and he's still very quiet and hasn't said much about what happened, and now I'm starting to feel guilty and wondering if I did take it the wrong way and am being the asshole here. In the comments, Lakila says, she traumatized your child. It was horrifying for your daughter to hear that. Bad enough that her mum was in the hospital after a car accident. As a young child, she likely had a whole lot of frightening scenarios going through her mind, unable to properly process that. Your daughter needed assurance and positivity, not what that disgusting Harridan said. Mother-in-law did mean it. You don't blurt something like that out of misunderstanding or as a joke. That whole hysterical outburst she put on in front of you, that was bullshit. Manipulative bullshit. Because she got caught. And it seems to have worked on your husband because she's trained or brainwashed him that way. Stand your ground. She needs at the very least a good long time out. Do not let your husband or anyone sweep this under the rug, because doing that would make everyone think that it's perfectly okay for mother-in-law to hope that you died. For your daughters to lose their mum. That's sickening. I'd make that time out at least 6 months. Hell, make it for the rest of this year. So she loses out on the big holidays at the very least. What a vile effing cow. Not the asshole. I agree with all of this. Mother-in-law's tears are manipulative. It's disgusting she wished you were dead, but it's unforgivable she told a child that. I would go no contact for years. I'm baffled she sees her grandkids more like her own children, and the fact that she resents OP for having daughters. That prompted mother-in-law to say that I hope she's dead to a 6-year-old. I can't imagine telling a 6-year-old that I hope her mum is dead. It's sick. That child might actually experience emotional trauma from this whole event. Awful. At first, I hoped that it was just a misunderstanding, and mother-in-law actually said, "Don't worry, if something happens to your mum, you can always come live with me." But no, the older girl confirmed what she actually said. How can someone say that to a child at such a time? Even saying, if something happens to your mum to a 6-year-old, will be traumatizing to them. Mother-in-law is just a vile human being. Not the asshole. Why would you feel guilty? She wished you dead out loud to your child so she could have a child with a vagina. That is so beyond messed up. Hopefully your husband realizes how absolutely effed up that is and cuts her off too. Being fair to her husband, cutting off his mother is probably difficult. I think they should cut her off, but that doesn't mean that it isn't hard. He's probably also struggling himself. His mother admitted that he wasn't good enough because she wanted daughters. You do realize that she basically told your husband that she didn't want a boy. He's probably dealing with his own issues at the moment, and that's why he's been quiet. The mean person is mother-in-law, not the asshole. I will say you of course should be mad at what happened and can understand going no contact, and I can understand no contact with a kid for a while as well. I will say that you do need to understand this is hard on your husband as well. He was basically told by his mum that he wasn't enough. He can decide if he wants contact again someday, but I'd recommend speaking to a therapist for him. As far as long-term no contact for your child, I'd say give it some time, and then both of you can talk. Maybe with professional help, about any further contact between grandma and child. Insane that a car crash happens and your life is in danger, yet this mother-in-law finds a way to traumatize everyone and make everything about her. Can people really not be insane for 2 seconds? Genuinely, what was going through her head? By the way, son, I wish that you were never born because I'd rather have a daughter, and at the same time, I hope your wife dies because then I can finally get the girls that I never had. Also, I hate you. Lunatic. Disgusting freak behavior right there. I would be going no contact with her for at least a year. OP, I'm confused. How do you have all this vitriol spewed in your face and then ask if you're an asshole for cutting her off after obvious crocodile tears? She preyed on your downfall. She wants you to die and you're like, I should give her a chance. I should really. That show she put on, it was beautiful. Give her an Oscar because she has me convinced. And now, on to the updates. Well, you guys were right. I decided to talk to my husband and asked if he's upset that I decided that me and the girls go no contact with mother-in-law. He said he wasn't. He said he always knew that mother-in-law wanted a daughter instead of him, and it brought back all the bad memories of rejection and hurt that he felt growing up as a kid by her. I suggested therapy, and he's willing to go. We are also going to get therapy for our 6-year-old, as she now gets anxious if I'm not within her sight. My husband agreed that going no contact with mother-in-law is the best thing for our family. Our daughter's birthday is coming up, and we have yet to tell mother-in-law that she is no longer invited. I'm not looking forward to that, but that's the update. Thanks everyone for the lovely comments and support. I appreciate it. In the comments, Danivel says, suggestion? Maybe take your daughter out of town for her birthday to a nearby attraction, zoo, play, something on her special birthday instead of a party, or a party on a later date with her little friends instead of family. If you're not there, mother-in-law can throw all the witch fits that she wants, and nobody will be there to see her, and there's no party for her to ruin. This is a great idea. We've always taken our kids out on an adventure for their birthdays, which morph into dinner out on mum and dad when they became adults. My husband's brother was a drug addict, bipolar disaster who could not stand all the attention not being on him, especially if it meant that the attention was somehow on my husband, which included attention paid to our kids by their grandparents. Not the asshole. I cut off my mother and brother after they said that I should have died in the car accident. If someone wishes you dead, do them the favor and get out of their life. Quotes, we have yet to tell mother-in-law she is no longer invited. Don't tell her. No contact means you simply don't tell her any details. She's literally not receiving an invitation. If she knows them, change the plans. Don't let her re-traumatize your kids by showing up and making a scene. Also, make sure the schools know not to let her near your girls. Yes, this combined with the going out of town bits may just be perfect. I wondered why the husband was acting so reasonably, but then it came out that he was a long-time victim of her abuse. I hope the family's able to heal. Oh, and F. Christina. I thought he was, understandably, it's a big shift and a lot to process, sad about going no contact, even if he agreed wholeheartedly that it was the right thing to do. I did not expect that he had been triggered into reliving a childhood of rejection. I'm so glad that these people found each other and that they can have all the messy shit on the table to work through as a family. Because holy cow. Can you imagine how much worse that poor man's childhood would have been if he had a sister? I'm guessing he'd be stuck playing scapegoat to this hypothetical golden sister who would herself have been trapped into playing out mother-in-law's deranged fantasies and deprived of any chance to find her own way in life. While possibly raising the sister to also be an abusive asshole. Poor guy was never going to win. But the mum not getting her way probably saved him some suffering, aside from Granny trying to hoard and traumatize his daughters, of course. Telling a kid that you hope their mother dies so you can get them is next level deranged. Like she wants daughters so much, she's okay traumatizing them first. Wait, she was awful to her actual kid? Well yeah, this woman needs a psych evaluation soon because 100% she's going to snatch the kids and say that they are hers. Anyway guys, that's all I have for you today. I do hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.